Let's dive into the five biggest mysteries of the Pittsburgh Steelers, what their expectations are, and whether or not they're going to meet them. Because I think that's the biggest question behind all of this is a guy like Corey Trice, a guy like Calvin Austin. Yeah, he has massive expectations. Is it realistic that he's going to reach those expectations in 2024? I got a couple of names here for you. I'll read them off, then we'll go one by one. Calvin Austin, Corey Trice, Darius Rush, Cole Holcomb, Van Jefferson, Justin Fields, and Russell Wilson. I think those are the biggest question marks. If you have another one, toss it in there because I would love to hear it. And I'm sure, Nick, you have some, thoughts that maybe I don't have. So if I missed anybody, let me know. Let's start with Calvin Austin, top of the list. Expectation this season is very reliable number 3, upside of a number 2 when it comes to the Pittsburgh Steelers wide receiver core. Calvin Austin is a guy that could come in here and be a massive piece to this offense, can be a complete gadget guy, can be the starter in the slot, can work on the outside, can replace Van Jefferson, can help Roman Wilson ease his way into the starting lineup by the end of the season, takes on a role next to George Pickens, can be used in the backfield a number of different ways. Calvin Austin is your complete gadget guy. I expect him to be a massive part of the offense. Honestly, I expect if you're looking for like a fantasy sleeper who you think might score 5-6 touchdowns this season in just very unique ways, I think Calvin Austin could be that guy. Just the way the Steelers offense is going to be designed and their lack of weapons, which opens doors for names like Calvin Austin. Expectations in year 3 for Calvin Austin is wide receiver 3 on the verge of wide receiver 2. Do you think he reaches those expectations by the end of the season?
I do. I'm bullish on Calvin Austin going into this season. And you mentioned him as a gadget guy. I think he could be more of a pure wide receiver in his skill set. I just don't think that he was given the opportunity. And I don't think really, and you've mentioned this a couple of times, I don't think Matt Canada had any idea what to do with somebody who has the current skill set and talent and package that Calvin Austin has. I think when you look at Arthur Smith, he is much more equipped to be able to get the best out of Calvin Austin. And I'm excited to see if he's able to do that. And that's why he's a question mark, is whether or not Calvin Austin in year 2.3, whatever you want to call it, because he lost his entire rookie year due to injury. I'm excited to see what he's able to do in this system under Arthur Smith, because I think that while, he looks like a gadget guy, he has been used similar to a gadget guy at times. I think he could be a pretty decent pure wide receiver. And I think that if they give him the opportunity, he could potentially, become one of the biggest assets for the Steelers on offense.
Yeah, I looked at Calvin Austin in year 1 and gave him a lot of hype because Calvin Austin played a lot bigger than he seems. He's able to go up and get balls. He's able to play on the outside, which I don't think a lot of people realize how good he can be on the outside. He was almost exclusively on the outside in college, and I get it. That's a while away at this point, but I think that Calvin has some real wide receiver 2 upside. He's probably the wide receiver 2 leaving OTAs and minicamp. Like, he's not on the depth chart going to be wide receiver 2, but I just think that in the who looked good, who performed the best, Calvin Austin was wide receiver 2. But I agree with you. Number 2 on this list is Corey Trice, which everybody wants to know about Corey Trice. Everybody wants to know if he's going to be the guy. Is he going to play in the slot? Is he going to play on the outside? Can he be cornerback 2? So many questions. Corey Trice, in my eyes, the peak of Corey Trice this season could be starting slot corner for maybe the entire season, maybe just the first 8 games, who knows. But I think the peak is starting slot corner. I think the realistic expectation is cornerback 3, a guy who could take a massive step forward and could stay healthy. And if he does stay healthy, you look at as part of the future of the Pittsburgh Steelers. I'm not going to put a guy who has the injury concerns that Corey Trice has in the category of future starter, because you just can't. You're taking way too big of a risk if you're the Pittsburgh Steelers to say Corey Trice is your future. And I get it that he gets hurt all the time, but we'll just ignore that. You can't prepare that way. But I think expectations in year 2 are to stay healthy, be the cornerback 3 with an upside of starting in the slot while Cam Sutton is dealing with the suspension. I think everything's there. His size, his strength, his speed. He's dealing with the knee injury, but he's already dealt with this knee injury, and it's helped certainly. Upside is starting slot corner. Expectation, cornerback 3. Does he meet them?
again, there's a reason he's a question mark. I've seen little from some of these guys. I've seen very little from Corey
Nothing.
Trice personally. I haven't been able to lay eyes on him. Wasn't up there the first 2 hours of training camp last year. So that's the only thing that really you've seen of him in pads since he joined the Steelers organization. So I'm intrigued to see what he's able to do and how he does with a full training camp, how he's able to hold up. And honestly, I do think that there is a lot of upside there. Everybody's excited for a reason because he shows glimpses, because he was that good at times at Purdue. So I'm excited to see if he can stay healthy, what he's able to do, especially as things get going here when it starts in the preseason. What does he look like I would hope he gets the bulk majority of snaps when it comes to like third quarter, fourth quarter, early in the preseason, and see what he can build from there.
Yeah, I hope that the Steelers really hammer this guy and see what they got in him. But that being said, he's got to be ready to go for training camp, which I expect him to be. I expect him to be a full go come day one of training camp, and he's got to stay healthy. That's the biggest question mark, is can he stay healthy? But if he does, I think he gets the first shot to start and replace Cam Sutton at the beginning of the season. I think he gets the first shot at cornerback 3. I know we're going to talk about Darius Rush, but I think that Corey Trice gets the first shot to do so, and to really be the third guy, the key piece to the Steelers defense, because they utilize cornerback 3s a lot more than most teams. So I think he's got a great opportunity to live up to this expectation. Whether or not he's going to hit it, I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens. Next on this list is Darius Rush, who expectations are lower. The upside is cornerback 3. The downside is realistic expectation is cornerback 4. Able to play in the slot, play a little bit of safety, develop into the next Cam Sutton type player that could play pretty much anywhere on defense. I don't have the super high ceiling. Like Corey Trice is a dude that shouldn't have went in the 7th round, but his injury concerns make him go in the 7th round because nobody's going to touch him earlier. Darius Rush is a guy where you drafted him in the 5th round, I believe, because you saw the upside, but you knew how raw he was. So he's got more development ahead of him. He's a later down the road type of guy. Year 3, year 4, you start to really see what you have in Darius Rush. Year 2 is more of a, hey, how far can he come along? I think Darius Rush is cornerback 4 material, able to eliminate guys like Anthony Averett and the need for a guy like Patrick Peterson maybe, and then maybe be your backup on the inside, and a guy who could play special teams and safety whenever you need him. Just a rotational piece that starts to develop. That's where I see in Darius Rush.
Yeah, you mentioned it, special teams. I think that's going to be the big thing for him this year. He might get those occasional spot starts like he did when he got a lot of time against the Tennessee Titans last year. I know we talked about that either earlier this week or later last week, but I can see that for him this year, him getting those opportunities. But again, it's going to be lightly bring him along, let him get his feet underneath him a little bit more, because as you mentioned, he was raw coming out of college. He's a guy who started his college career as a wide receiver and then quickly shifted over, but at the same time, making that transition and then also going up a class from college to pro, it's a lot to throw at a guy, especially a young guy. So I'm intrigued to see obviously what they do with him, but I do think that that's his upside this year, is getting those occasional spot starts, getting those occasional games where he gets 25 to 40% of the defensive snaps because they just need it because of the game plan, and seeing what he's able to do with that. I think he has the capability and the raw talent. It's just, can he, when he gets those opportunities, take advantage of them?
That's very high upside. I think that he could get there. That would be nice to see him get there. Look, Darius Rush has the speed to play in the NFL. He's got just athleticism to play anywhere in the NFL. And it would be nice to see him be able to utilize that. I thought he played well the first time he stepped on the field for the Steelers last season and then completely fell off. There's got to be a reason that he was cut from 2 teams before he ended up in Pittsburgh. Yeah. We'll see more of that this year because you're not paying attention to that in practice. You're not even getting good looks in practice. So you'll see more of it this summer. I like that. I like the spot start, play a decent role. You get 25% of the defensive snaps out of a guy like Darius Rush, your defense is looking pretty good or terrifyingly bad. So it's a good spot to be. Next is probably the biggest mystery in Pittsburgh, and that's Cole Holcomb. The expectations for Cole Holcomb right now is just to play at some point during the season, because he's not going to start the season with the Steelers. I don't believe he's not going to be there for training camp. Everybody keeps asking on an update with Cole Holcomb. I don't know if there is one. Everybody keeps saying the same things when you ask him is, yeah, he's taking positive steps forward, but we'll see. I believe Terrell Austin made a comment that kind of hinted at Holcomb not being there at the beginning of the season. The expectation is for him to play at some point, hopefully early enough to where Peyton Wilson isn't already claiming that starting job next to Patrick Queen, and Cole Holcomb's just a guy that you don't really need anymore on the roster, because I would love to see Cole Holcomb, Peyton Wilson, and Patrick Queen become a dynamic three with the Landon Roberts just being an absolute stud off the bench. That would be best case scenario for the Steelers. Expectation is that he just plays. If he returns, what do you think the chances are he starts for the Steelers at any point this season?
That's going to be hard to crack it because it's not like the Pittsburgh Steelers are bereft of talent at that position now. Like last year, they were, because they lost Quan, they lost Cole. A Landon was playing with so many injuries that you can't count, but it's not like it matters to a Landon. But you look at where they're at going into this season. You have Patrick Queen, who is a bona fide 1.1 in the middle there. And then you have a guy in Peyton Wilson and a guy in the Landon Roberts who can both be bona fide starters. So when Cole comes back, there's no need to rush him into that starting role. Yeah, he had the talent, and right before his injury, he was looking to become a really, really stellar piece for the Steelers. And then obviously the injury happens and it's unfortunate, but there's no need to rush him into things considering where the Steelers are currently at. Of course, things need to play out. We saw what happened last year. You make plans, God laughs. Hopefully the plan goes a little bit better this year.
It's so true. It's so true. I agree with you. I don't know where we stand. I hope that you get to see more out of him, but you're right. Like, he looked good for the brief time that he was out there, but wasn't enough to say that he's going to be good all the time. The Steelers' expectation for this guy when they signed him was to be who Patrick Queen is now, is to be their guy in the middle, their long-term guy, their replacement, their final missing piece for Ryan Shazier. Maybe he stays that way, but they really did. They jacked it up, and this depth chart looks so good that it's tough to say that he's guaranteed a spot when he returns. So it's tough to say right now. I agree with you. I think expectation is just wait and see. And is he going to meet it? Who knows? Who knows? Biggest question mark when it comes to wide receiver is Van Jefferson, because right now he is supposed to be the Steelers wide receiver 2. But if you look at anything this guy has done in the NFL, it has not been wide receiver 2 material outside of the second year of his NFL career. So the question is, can he get back there? Can he get back to a wide receiver 2? I'll give you a reason why I feel good about Van Jefferson being okay. And that is, if you go to the Tennessee Titans under Arthur Smith, Corey Davis was a stud, and Corey Davis was not a stud anywhere else in the NFL. He was not a stud in New York. He really wasn't a stud in Tennessee outside of the one great year with Arthur Smith. I think Van Jefferson's got a shot to just have a year, a 700-800 yard year, which would be wild for the Pittsburgh Steelers. But I think there's an opportunity there for it to happen. He did not impress me during OTAs and minicamp. He needs to impress somebody during training camp. Expectations for Van Jefferson is that he slides into a wide receiver 3 role behind Calvin Austin and George Pickens with Roman Wilson on the inside. I mean, upside is wide receiver 2. Downside is he's barely a part of this offense, and you're getting passed up by guys who we probably don't even know yet, like Dez Fitzpatrick and Marquez Callaway and Quez Watkins, and maybe even a Roman Wilson on the outside. Who knows? But I say the upside is 700 plus for Van Jefferson. The downside is we forget that he's on the roster by the end of the season. What side is more likely?
I'm going to go with the latter on that one. I don't want to bury Van Jefferson yet because, like you mentioned, Arthur Smith sometimes can just get the best out of certain wide receivers. But at the same time, when you look at what the Pittsburgh Steelers have right now, there are so many other players that are at or around his level that it's not guaranteed that he's the one that steps up. Roman Wilson could come out and the next month and a half make tremendous strides and become a guy that you have to have on the field most of the time. Same goes for a guy like Calvin Austin. And then also, we've talked a couple of times about they're going to use big sets. They're going to use multi-tight end sets a lot. So that's going to reduce the amount of opportunities that Van Jefferson does get. And honestly, that's why I think it's probably the latter.
Yeah, I think I agree. I hope for the best. Do I expect the best? No, I don't. Well, not as we said right now.
Since I made that slip up, Allen Robinson finished with 260. Do you think
Yeah.
he at the very least gets more than 260 this year?
No.
Van Jefferson.
If I had to
does.
take a shot, if I had to guess, no. The answer is no. I think the Steelers have Van Jefferson, Scotty Miller, Quez Watkins, Roman Wilson. They're all 210-yard receivers with a touchdown, maybe 2. Connor Hayward, you could toss in there. Darnell Washington, you could toss in there. Cordero Patterson, you could toss in there. Bunch of 210 receivers, nothing crazy. I mean, Al Robinson played a lot of football in Pittsburgh last year, and he 260
targets.
Yeah, I don't think Van Jefferson's getting those numbers. We'll see though. We'll see. And then I don't know, the king of this question of the Steelers mysteries here, the of all be all for Pittsburgh Steelers when it comes to question marks is the quarterback position. Justin Fields, Russell Wilson. The expectations for Justin Fields are very simple. The high end is he somehow comes into training camp, shows that he is an ultimate competitor, that he can do this, that he is better than Russell Wilson, and that the upside that he brings to this team is better for this team right now than the ease, the peace of mind that Russell Wilson brings as a veteran. The downside is you get Justin Fields for a year, you don't see anything good out of him, and, well, you just wasted a 6th-round pick. Rats. Who cares? The upside or the upside for Russell Wilson, the Pittsburgh Steelers are Super Bowl contenders, and they're a real team, and Russell Wilson has revamped his career, and he's going into the Hall of Fame because of what he did in Pittsburgh. This is a Peyton Manning, put the stamp on the career, send it out with a bang, and in 2025, we're all lining up to go see Sarah's Oil in theaters or on Amazon or wherever it is. The downside is, if we're being realistic, the downside is Russell Wilson makes it halfway through the season and Justin Fields is the starting quarterback of the Pittsburgh Steelers, and that's the end of his career and it's over, and you just fade into the sunset. You made a boatload of money and you're on the verge of being a Hall of Famer, but chances are you're not going to get in there, and you're married to a hip-hop star and you have great children and you make moves and you have companies with crazy names that are kind of motivational, and you just have a good life. So I think the upside is Steelers Super Bowl contender for Russell Wilson. The downside is he's not there. The upside for Justin Fields is he's the week 1 starter because he is a stud. And the downside is he never sees a starting game for the Pittsburgh Steelers ever in his career. Let me ask this. What is, of those 4 scenarios, what is the most likely to happen?
Ooh, that one's tough. I mean, of those 4, I would probably have to go with the Justin Fields of it all, because I don't know if I can say, Super Bowl contender is most likely with the Pittsburgh Steelers. That's a hard jump to go from a team that hasn't won a playoff game in over almost a decade to Super Bowl contender. But I also don't think Russell Wilson is cooked. I do think that he's going to be better than a lot of people are projecting him to be. So I think he's going to be a decent quarterback for the Steelers. So I think I would have to go to the Justin Fields of it all. And honestly, the talent that he has, I have to go to the positive, that he is a guy that is undeniably ready. And he has, you mentioned it, the king of questions. It's the king and prince to me. And I think Justin Fields can really become the guy that everybody's excited for, while Russell Wilson still has a little bit left in the tank. So you allow him to do what the plan was, which is let him get some seasoning under Wilson, come out, and then after having a little bit of a reset, really starting his career for the second time.
Yeah. Okay. I like that. That's a third. It's a little loophole there. I don't mind it.
Loophole.
I don't mind it. I do think that that's the best case scenario for the Steelers, is that Russell Wilson holds on to the job this year, looks good, is a good quarterback, and then they have a quarterback next season that they feel comfortable with and confident in Justin Fields, because that gives the Steelers every answer they're looking for. It doesn't leave any worry. The worst case scenario for the Steelers in this entire thing is that they head into next offseason and they have no idea who their quarterback's going to be whatsoever, because at that point you're the Steelers, so you're going to finish good enough where you have a bad draft pick, and what are you just going to look for another veteran? Or you're just going to go, you're going to sign Daniel Jones? Say, come on, pal. That'll work out. It won't. I think the best case is exactly what you laid out. Justin Fields looks good enough to be the guy next year. Russell Wilson looks good enough to be the guy this year. Look, I'm telling you, upside of a contender, I think it's there.